So welcome to another fantastic Faena Rose event. I cannot tell you how personally excited I am for this one. We do over 80 events a year, and I have to say this is an absolute highlight of the year for me personally. Why? I love all forms of artistic mediums, but I think my absolute favorite is photography. And who do we have with us tonight? This morning, not tonight. We're doing this on a Saturday morning. The one and only, the legendary Steve McCurry, who has shot countless iconic photos that you and we all know and love so dearly. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Give us a little sneak peek of what we're going to talk about today, but don't give away too much.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. It'll be great to be in conversation with you. This is really a look back at, I would say, 45 years of my traveling, photographing war zones, culture, all over the world, all the continents, everywhere.
Love it. I like to say your work is about humanity and its inhumanities, if you will. And I think we're going to discuss and touch upon all of that. So, as we like to say, get ready, strap in for another fantastic Faena Rose event. But today I'm so excited about this conversation in particular. I'm a fan of all the arts, the visual arts, the performing arts, the applied arts, and I have to say, one of my absolute favorite artistic mediums is photography. I moved to New York in 1995. I got 2 full-time jobs. I worked 80 hours a week, but somehow I managed to take on the side some courses at ICP, International Center of Photography, and I love photography. For me, it is one of the ultimate storytelling mediums, and to be able to moderate this conversation with a gentleman who I feel needs no introduction, who is a legend, who has shot and created some of the most iconic photos that we all grew up with and continues to photograph, for me is a true privilege and an honor. What else can I tell you? You know what? This is the point where I normally go through the talent's bio, but I'm not going to read it out because we're going to discuss it here, right? And I want to start this conversation by, I encourage you all to watch the documentary on Steve. I think it's on Amazon. It's called McCurry, The Pursuit of Color. And that documentary starts with a voiceover, someone speaking a voiceover quote that I want to say. And I'm not even sure who said it. It wasn't clear to me who said it, but I thought it was great. It said, "Steve to some is inaccessible. He's a bit of an enigma." So I want to say 2 things. Number 1, we're going to make him accessible today because I'm going to have a conversation with him, and then we're going to open it up to all of you to be able to ask questions. And then as far as the enigma part, we want to pull back the curtain to that, and we want to open up sort of his life, his 45 years plus of photography and creating some of the most incredible photos. So let's do that. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome the one and only legend himself, Steve McCurry, please. I love it.
With your permission, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, it's an honor to be here, especially with you, and have this conversation. I would like just to point out quickly that
Sure.
I came down with my wife and daughter. Today's my wife's birthday, and she's sitting right over there.
Oh. Andy's in the VIP booth there.
And Lucia's there too, somewhere roaming around, probably out getting a coffee or something.
I love it. I want, in this conversation, I want to sort of talk through your journey, your life journey. And I want to start with you as a child, if you will. Is that me who's going to do this? Or I want to start with you as a child, and this is just going to go, right? So we're going to show you a bunch of photos. You're going to recognize a bunch of them. The conversation won't necessarily coincide with the photographs you're seeing, but in our conversation, the context will be relevant and we'll all kind of fall in line, if you will. So you grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
You were born there, right?
Yes.
Were you an only child? Do you have any siblings?
This is me with my 2 6-shooters when I was, I don't know.
It's Florida, you could still have them.
Yeah, I had 2 sisters, lived in a town outside of Philadelphia, and normal childhood, I was a little bit wild, very wild.
What's that mean?
Well, I was always sort of partly in trouble, partly, kind of a class clown, lots, just doing all kinds of, getting in trouble and being mischievous all the time.
I like you even more. I can relate even more. Okay, and so you were sent. Is that the reason why you were sent off to boarding school?
Oh my God, yeah, boarding school. That was maybe one of the worst experiences of my life. I didn't really understand. I think my father, my mother had died, and he had 3 children. I thought I was maybe too much to handle, and he thought that maybe sending me off to a school in North Carolina. And I was like, I hated every minute of it. every day. I got by. I played soccer and baseball and all that. I sort of had fun, but I wanted to be home. And that regimented kind of life with bunk beds, and it was like a military academy. I decided after 1 year that was enough.
One and done.
One and done. Out.
One and done. And then what happened?
And then I went to a public school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really went wild. Never got, I was going to say I never got arrested, but I never got convicted.
And by the way, if you get convicted as a juvenile, it doesn't count anyways.
Yeah, I was 16. We went downtown to, experiment with certain substances.
Were you creative as a child?
Well, I was. I love to draw. I still have some drawings from that time.
Okay.
But again, I was outside playing sports, climbing trees, kind of, but it wasn't until I was, so after high school, I took a gap year.
Okay.
In fact, I took 2 gap years. The second gap year, I went to Europe and lived in Europe for a year. That's when I came to the realization that I got to find something to do with my life. Because in Europe, I was just sort of, kind of hanging out.
Where in Europe?
Working in the kitchen in the Hilton Hotel in Amsterdam when John Lennon and Yoko were there. And then I decided I got to go back to school. I got to go to college. And that's when I thought, well, what the hell can I do with my life? I thought, well, maybe I'll be a filmmaker. Make movies. I love movies. I thought that. So I studied cinematography. And then I realized that there was 2 problems. One, it took a lot more work than I thought it was going to take. And second of all, I was going to a university, Penn State University. And it turns out that where you really need to be is either New York or LA.
Sure.
Or be Orson Welles from Kenosha, Wisconsin, and be a genius. Well, I wasn't a genius. And I just then, but in the middle of that course, I took a course in still photography, and that's when I thought, aha, this is I can do this. It's a solitary endeavor. I could just walk out the door, photograph. I didn't have a crew. There was no sound. I didn't have to worry about cables and cords and editing tables. So that's when
you got the bug?
Well, I thought, okay, let me find a job in photography. So I got a job on a small newspaper. Thought this is great. In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia.
Thought this is great. I'm getting paid to be a photographer.
Photojournalist?
Life is good, yeah.
Okay.
So after a couple years of that, I realized how repetitive it was and how most of the assignments were really worthless. They had no, they were, check passings and Little League and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good kind of a training ground to some extent. But I thought, you know what? My real ambition is to travel. That's what I did when I was 19.
Right.
I want to travel. I quit that job. I got a one-way ticket to India. I thought, hell, I'm just going to jump off the deep end.
How old were you at that age?
I was, when I made that decision, I was 25.
So you were post-college, right? You'd already been working as a photojournalist for a couple of years, and you were like, not really feeling it as far as locally, and you said, I want to travel, I want to still do my art, my photography. And you bought a one-way ticket.
I was working really hard,
okay,
not getting anywhere. I was like a hamster, one of those wheels. And I thought, I just got to I have to literally jump into open space and just take a chance. And went to India, and then I decided, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this work if it kills me.
Okay.
And I just spent 2 years wandering and learning. And
were you working over there? Or
I was working for me.
Okay, sure.
Meaning I wasn't getting paid. So I would do, mostly was just, finding pictures. I did a couple very small assignments for magazines, always on spec. Mm-hmm. They said, well, yeah, that's a great idea. Well, send it to us. We'll see if we want to publish it. So I did some of those. But the pivotal, I don't want to.
No, please, I'm loving this.
The pivotal, so I'm just this random guy wandering around India with a camera, and the pictures were okay, maybe not that great, but my break came at the year and a half point when I met some Afghan refugees.
But that was because there was you were in India, there was a particular heat wave, right?
I'd already lived through one of those,
where temperatures hit well over the 40s, and you're like, let me go get a little bit let me go up to the mountains, right?
I did that the year before.
Okay.
I thought, I don't want to do that again. So I thought, okay, well, I'd been up to the Himalayas in India. I thought, let me go to Pakistan just as a change of pace. Go up there, take a jeep up into the Hindu Kush. Love that name, Hindu Kush. That's a great name. And I was in a really small hotel, and there were 2 Afghan refugees there. They said, "Oh, there's fighting literally over the mountain, and you're a photographer. Well, we want you to tell our story." I thought, I don't have any connections with any magazines or news. They said, no, we wanted to take you in. So I thought, okay, that sounds like a great story and a great adventure.
How did you communicate though with them?
Oh, they spoke English.
Okay. Perfect.
But the guys they eventually sent me with,
right,
a few days later, no English, 0. And I didn't speak their language, which was Pashto, a language which I still don't know till today. But and I thought, this probably isn't a good idea. I don't know them. We're going into a war zone. They have guns. What could go wrong?
Is this 77?
This was the June 79.
Oh, 79. Okay.
I thought, and I had told them I was going to go. And the morning they came to get me, I was hoping and praying that they would forget about it. And I'm laying in my bed, not wanting to get out. I think, okay, now it's pretty late. I thought, what a great story it is that they invited me to go to Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. That alone I thought was amazing. But they came for me. And then I changed into some of their local clothes, all my bags and luggage I left. I never went back for it, by the way. All my stuff is still back wherever I left it. I changed my clothes. I had a camera bag, went in, and I got these pictures which nobody...
But before we go further, that's a seminal moment. That is a defining moment in your career. I always like to say there's, all of us have in life what I like to call a seize the moment, right? That one time where it's sort of, you hit the fork in the road, you can go this way or you can go that way, right? And you chose the right way.
Yeah.
Because even though you were hesitant, right? Oh, I hope we're not really doing this, but yet you did it and you made that decision and you went. Because of that, please continue. I think it's a really important moment.
Well, I couldn't, I had given my word that I was going to go in. And I thought, I just kind of, my heart was saying go, but my brain was saying, this is crazy, So I went, and so there's no electricity, there's no running water, we had to walk everywhere, there was horses, but no bicycles or motorcycles or anything. So we're walking everywhere, up and down. You get to the top.
How long is that journey?
It took us about 4 or 5 days to get from the place in Pakistan to where we were going.
Wow.
And every day, these guys get up and pray at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we get up. I'm not praying. I'm just asleep. And then we start walking, and we would walk all day. We'd stop and they didn't really have any food. They'd stop at a farmhouse. We'd get some bread, but they would go and kind of forage for berries, shake the tree, and all that. And so I did finally get to the kind of the front where the fighting was, and I was able to photograph what was happening there. And then when I sent those pictures home,
which are the photos of, right?
Yeah, this is this is Perry Match.
Yes.
So I went from this suburban newspaper photographer to getting published, page 1, New York Times. Big spreads in Stern, Perry Match, the AP picked up.
Went from an unknown.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who you were.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then suddenly it's like, well, who's this guy McCurry? And the pictures again kept being published over and over. And then I went back again, and then I started working for Time Magazine. Got some assignments from Newsweek, and a small gig with ABC News. And at that point, I thought, okay, I'm ready to take a portfolio into National Geographic.
But going back, at what point did you feel like, hold on a second, I'm on to something here? Because these photos, when you shot them that were published in all the newspapers, were only published months later, right? And then it was kind of like, the dam burst and everyone came knocking on your door saying, we want more of these photos, right?
Right.
But was there one point when you're shooting those photos where you realized sort of what you captured and the gold? Because you're shooting film, you're not shooting digital, right?
Right.
Was there one moment where you felt you knew, like, whoa?
I think once I got to the front on that first trip, I thought this is a unique experience. I mean, this is something which like nobody else has.
Right.
This is a story which is not being covered by any international press. Because I was listening to the BBC on a shortwave radio, and I knew that this was kind of known, especially for the BBC and their audience. I thought this is important, so stick with it. And then when I sent the pictures home, and I got my first picture published in the New York Times, and there was a magazine which has since folded. It's still in Germany and France. It's called Geo, and they picked up some of my pictures. And I knew that I actually now have access to the big leagues, to the best of the best in terms of publications.
Just curious, did you ever have because we jumped right into now all of a sudden you have a career, right? Did you ever have a mentor? Did you ever, who was your inspiration? Did you have a mentor?
Well, when I was working for the newspaper, I did a workshop with one of my favorite photographers who later became a close friend, was Elliot Erwitt.
Sure.
Elliot unfortunately passed away about a year or so ago. But I did the workshop with him, and I was kind of hanging on every word. And I knew his work. I knew all of his books at that point. And although I can't say that he really spent time with me outside of that one workshop. The memory of that stayed with me, and eventually when I joined Magnum, actually one of my great moments was doing a book tour with Elliot in Australia. He was promoting his book, and I was doing my book. We traveled together for several days in Australia. So I would say Elliot, and then there was Henri Cartier-Bresson, the famous French photographer, who I again met when I was in Magnum.
And not to digress, but he's also, Henri often spoke about the decisive moment.
Right.
Right? Just curious, do you believe in the idea of a single perfect moment in photography? Does that exist?
Well, I think sometimes there's many perfect moments, but I don't know if it has to be perfect, but it's definitely decisive. Okay. It's a moment which all the elements come together. The story, the light, the composition, all of that and you look at the picture and it's like you kind of recognize the beauty of this composition.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So now you are well into your career. You're shooting, you're documenting conflicts. Let's lead up to maybe your seminal work, which is Afghan Girl. Talk us through that. And if I've skipped over anything, please feel
based
free.
on this Afghanistan trip, the
Sure.
3 or 4, actually by that time it was a few, and I had taken my portfolio, they looked at it, and before that story, I'd done 2 other stories in Pakistan. And the first story they said, it was a story which actually was never published. It was kind of a throwaway assignment. I guess they just wanted to test me. It was a story in this province called Baluchistan. They gave me $4,000 expense money, and the contract was I think it was for $6,000.
Is that fairly rich for those days?
No.
No? Okay.
No. The $4,000 was, I got there in September and I worked until June.
Okay.
On a 3-month assignment. Okay. It was an impossible assignment. And I thought, I'm going to do this damn thing if it kills me.
But what was it? What was the assignment?
It was a story on Baluchistan. They said, do you have access to Baluchistan? I said, of course. Yeah, I know people there. Turns out that it's restricted. The whole province for foreigners is restricted. I didn't know that. So I spent all those months. And I made that $4,000 stretch from September to like the end of May. I mean, I really made it stretch.
Okay.
And at the end, I was desperate. I said, can you wire me like $400 to get home? Anyway, it turns out that the writer, they weren't happy with the text. And months and months and months and months and months go by. And I find myself in Beirut at the bar with the editor, the boss. I said, what about the Baluchistan? He said, nobody's interested in that. They were not going to publish it. And I was like completely devastated. I thought that story I'd worked on for all those months is now. But as a result of that, I got another assignment to go to Afghanistan, which resulted in the Afghan Girl picture, which was another moment when I walked into the tent in this girls' school, and I looked at her face and those eyes, and suddenly like everything kind of went away, because I knew that was the picture of the being in that school.
Sure.
And I thought, okay, whatever I have to organize myself to get this picture. And so
because first you shot other students before you got to her, right?
Because, Afghan girls are shy, women are impossible to photograph. I thought, rather than scare her off, let me photograph some of the other students so she can kind of see that this is okay, it's going to be fun,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. Photograph those. And then I didn't want her to. I kind of wanted her to feel almost excluded. And then finally, I asked the teacher, "Can we photograph her?"
Right.
She came over, sat, and she has this look, which I think, although I can't say for sure, but I think it's partly just curiosity of like, who is this guy? Why is he dressed funny? He doesn't speak our language. He has this camera, and I had, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, maybe a minute. I'm shooting, and the light is perfect. The background is perfect. I didn't change anything. It was just everything's right there. One of those, magic moments.
Sure.
And eventually, after that minute or whatever, she just figured, okay, well, that's it. She got up and walked away. So I didn't really know, because I had this very slow color film, Kodachrome, and I thought, I hope it's in focus. I hope it's sharp, and then weeks go by, like a month, 6 weeks, and I went back.
Right. So you didn't even know.
Didn't even know. I kind of forgot about it.
What was that like when you developed it and you looked at it for the first time? Did the hairs on the back of your neck stand up?
But it's tack sharp, and the color was sort of perfect, and the look. So I made maybe 10 exposures. Some of them don't have that magic, but this one, there's two frames, that had that look, and you can see the eyes, the color of her eyes, her shawl, and incidentally, the hole in her shawl was from a fire in the kitchen, and so it's this enigmatic look. You can tell that she's poor, yet she has this sort of sense of dignity and pride and fortitude.
She's now living in Italy, is it, or where?
She's actually in Germany.
Germany, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And so from there, gosh, your use of color is unbelievable. I mean, I think that documentary, Pursuit of Color, is incredible. I'm going to ask you a question regarding that later on. So from there, you're now, that was the cover of National Geographic, I think June of 1995. No, sorry, 1998. 85?
85.
Right? 85 June. And from there, it comes out. I specifically remember it. My dad collected National Geographics. I think a lot of us, right? Parents collected National Geographics. And what was the reaction? What was that like for you? That must have been a career high at that time.
Yeah, it was.
Where were you when that came out? When that issue came out?
I was in Europe.
Okay.
And I remember seeing it all like on the newsstand.
Sure.
I thought,
whoa,
that's my picture. But I actually had 3 covers, almost within the span of a year. One was on a train journey across India. One was on the monsoon, the weather thing in India, and then the Afghan Girl. So it was like really hot.
Wow. What a... And so talk us through from there.
So I started, I got a contract.
Because you photographed a lot of countries.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've been to, how many countries have you been to?
Like 100 and some. I never actually counted how many countries, because that was really not my ambition. I've been to India around 80 times, just India.
80 times?
Just India, because every time I went to Nepal, I'd go go into Pakistan, into India, Sri Lanka. That was kind of my hub. And it's but I got assignments in Africa, South America, Europe.
Where have you
Russia.
Not been that you want to go?
Well, one of the places I've never been to, I've always wanted to go was, and I would never go there now, is Iran, because they have a habit of, you come in with a proper visa,
right.
Even if you have a invitation from the government and you're there to do whatever, they can still grab you and put you in jail. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, and you might just be a little high profile.
Yeah, yeah. There was an Italian journalist just recently who was the Italians had picked up an Iranian, and so they decided just to find some random foreigner that picked up this young Italian journalist.
Has there ever been an assignment or coverage that you've done, that you've shot, that has never really quite received the exposure that you feel it deserves? You know, we have so many different locations of your story, your visual storytelling that we associate with, but is there one country or an assignment that is kind of, you're particularly proud but just never quite received that recognition?
Well, I did a story. There's two. One, the first one I think, which I worked on it for on and off for like a year. It was called the Bible Belt. Mm-hmm. It was a look at that sector of American society, and I photographed all the notable people, all the and I came up with a very different idea of that.
What year was that?
This was like 86, 87. Worked really hard on it. The problem was that it was laid out. We had our opening spread was Jimmy Swaggart.
The
Well,
Honorable Jimmy Swaggart?
Yeah, well, what happened? Jimmy Swaggart, as we're laying out the magazine, what does Jimmy Swaggart do? He gets arrested or uncovered for being with a prostitute. Which, I mean, whatever is fine. But, his whole, he would have railed against that.
Sure.
So that kind of killed the story right there.
You still, so that whole series has never been published? Or
in bits and pieces.
In bits and
never
pieces.
In its totality. Also, another story which I worked on recently, which was Ukraine.
Sure.
I went to Ukraine twice last year, but partly there was the media was oversaturated with pictures of Ukraine, and second of all, well, I guess that was the main reason that it just, I felt I wanted to get more visibility for that story.
Can you tell me, this is actually one of my absolute favorite photographs of yours, this one here. Can you tell me a little bit about this photograph?
Sure. I'm in Bombay, or Mumbai as they call it now, and I'm in a traffic light on the way from the airport, and at that time, I'm not sure what it's like now, but almost every intersection in that area of the city, there was some beggars that would come to your car and want money. Every intersection. And so it was raining, and we stopped at a red light, and this mother and child came to the car window, and I look out, and my cameras, I just instinctively picked up my camera. I made just two exposures. The first exposure, the child's eyes are looking down. The second exposure, he's looking at me, and then the light turns and off we go. But looking at the picture, it always thought, this is like two worlds coming together. Here they are, this poor family, mother and her son comes. It's raining, it's traffic, it's polluted, it's all this, and I'm in this air-conditioned bubble, and they're outside in this heat and rain, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and boom, off we go.
Let's fast forward a little bit to an important time in history, which was the invasion of Kuwait, right? Tell us a little bit about that, and I'm not sure that the photographs will match that, but we're going to get there.
Well, I kind of came late to so I was particularly interested in the kind of the ecological, catastrophe that was unfolding, where you had all these 600 or 800 oil fields which had been set ablaze, and some of them were ablaze, some of them were just spewing oil. So the whole region had become polluted, and as you got closer to those oil fields, it was like night. You drive into the oil fields, it was just black, and it was surreal. It was like this enormous movie set of destroyed tanks and bodies and all this stuff. And I spent 6 weeks kind of there. I had a Jeep, which one of the problems was all this shrapnel everywhere. So we'd have to sort of fill up the back of the car with spare tires. And there was no gas station, so we'd have to find an abandoned fuel truck and get fuel
siphon the gas from that.
And also take the wheels off of abandoned Jeeps and put all those wheels in the back because we'd get flats.
How do you approach that scenario in terms of how do you prepare? You're going into this conflict zone. What is the prep ahead of time? Like, do you have a guy on the ground, or like, how do you enter that?
Well, I had I had sort of a press credential. I had gone in with an artillery division.
Okay. To get you in.
To kind of get me in. So I'm there. But I also lined up a really wonderful Kuwaiti fixer, sort of translator, who took me around the oil fields. So that was kind of my way. But he was really pivotal in getting me access to all these places.
Maybe not earlier in your career, but once you're established, is that sort of the MO where you have a translator, you have a local handler that is sort of your fixer, that can speak the language, that can help you sort of navigate? Is that?
That's the key.
Right.
That's absolutely. You need somebody who knows the local culture, the customs, how to navigate where the minefields are in the case of, he spoke Arabic, obviously, and he was able to kind of navigate this.
But I think at the same time, not just having your fixer, your handler who's going to facilitate this, but I think a big part of it comes from you yourself and your energy, because at the same time, a big part of what you do is, meeting these people who've never met you and earning their trust sort of instantly to be able to capture that moment, right? And somebody who doesn't have that right energy, regardless of having the right fixer, is not going to be able to earn that trust right away. So I think a lot of it has to come with you and having that sort of, the energy to be able to earn someone's trust, a subject's trust right away, because otherwise you're not going to get that from them.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent point, because whether it's Kuwait or whether it's meeting someone on the street, make it the trust and somebody bringing them into your process so that they want to take the time and trust you to make a picture or whatever. If you have a negative vibe, people tend to want to.
Right. It doesn't matter what your fixer, the local, is saying. It's like if they don't feel it with you.
You can learn that to some extent, but I think it's also just part of your personality. If you have that kind of, connection, you can establish.
Any mistakes along the way where you kind of oh, next time maybe I should do things a little differently?
Yeah, there's one instance that comes to mind. I was on a railway platform in India, and I photographed there. Again, I'm already 2 years into and I photographed this family they were waiting for the train. Click. And the man jumps up and says, no photo. And I kind of just started I had a translator, started to walk away. And he said, I want the film. And I just kind of brushed him. I said, sorry, I'll leave. No, I want the film. He really wanted the film. And I wasn't going to give him my film. Well, a crowd started to gather, and they weren't happy. And I realized that, and he grabbed my camera strap, and I realized that, well, eventually what's going to happen is they're going to take the film and the camera, and then who knows what they're going to do to me. So I took the film out. So I really learned, but that was, that's like 35 years ago. So I really...
You're a quick learner.
Yeah, I decided, I learned from that point that you got to be really careful.
A lot of creatives and a lot of people, successful people in general, have sort of, you can call it imposter syndrome. Did you ever feel that at all in any part of your career where you're like, wow, I've got this level of success.
Well, in a way, every day. No, just in the sense that I think that whatever success you have when you go out on the street or go out to shoot, I mean, I have a certain confidence, I understand, but you always have to go out and kind of prove yourself. You have to go back and actually do the work, and it always, you got to have to start from zero to some extent, and that nothing comes easy ever. Sure. Nothing ever really.
Sure.
But you know that you'll get there. That the confidence, knowing that you'll eventually arrive, but there's no guarantees necessarily, unless you put the work in, the mental work and the physical work to get to this. So I'm overconfident when I go out on the street to work.
Let's talk quickly about a seminal point in your career in our country's history, which is 9/11, right? If I recall correctly, you just got back from a trip from Europe, I think, or from China, and you got back on the 10th, right? You woke up the morning of the 9/11. Right. Talk us through that, because it's a pretty important part of.
Well, I had been in Tibet, and I flew from. Actually it was Chengdu, and eventually got back to New York, and got home late, tired, jet lagged, put all my equipment and luggage off in the corner, and the next morning on the 11th, I went down to my office on the 9th floor, and my assistant was there. We started looking through the mail, whatever, and her mother called her and said, "Do you realize that the World Trade Centers are on fire?" So I looked out the window, and we had a view from downtown, and they were both on fire. So
this is before they fell?
Yeah. So we went up on the roof, and we had access to the roof. After that, the access was. So I could throw my cameras up, and I started photographing, and I thought, well, they're on fire, they'll be put out. Maybe I should walk down and photograph it closer to the. So as I'm sitting there photographing, the first tower collapses, and it was like, that didn't happen. That's impossible. This is like a nightmare. And my camera was on it as it came down, and it just seemed like such an impossibility. That's impossible. Mm-hmm. So then I thought, my brain was like freaking out, and I thought, okay, I kind of went on automatic pilot. I thought, let me continue to shoot. I put another lens on, and I shot, anticipating the next tower to collapse. And as that sort of imploded and collapsed, I tracked it. Now both are down, and I was like, oh my God, this is, So I told my assistant, we have to go down to there. So we got my camera bag, but already the streets were closed.
Wow.
That quickly. I was able to get to Canal Street. That was, and then further down, that was closed. So we were able, just through force of will, to be able to circumvent some of these roadblocks. And we live here, we live there. We gotta, whatever. We got down to ground zero, and I spent the entire afternoon. And we were told so many times, you got to go. You can't be here.
Wait, that was day of?
Day of.
You shot those haunting photos.
Well, they were the day of, and then I went home, and I couldn't sleep. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I thought, I got to go back down. Got it. So I got up. I dressed completely in khaki, with the idea that maybe I can look like I'm or somebody doing some kind of work. So as I got to, it was like the West Side Highway. There were all these, but I kind of attached myself behind like a firefighter's crew. And again, I'm all totally in khaki, so I kind of look like I'm a worker.
Right.
And I was able to follow them. And once we got past the last checkpoint, I kind of peeled off and went back to the same place where I'd photographed the day before, because they wanted everybody out.
Yeah.
And eventually, so I started photographing until about 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they literally escorted me out, and I never went back again.
I want to go open it up for questions, but before we go into questions, I hope you'll humor me with a little fun segment.
Sure.
That is sort of rapid fire. I like to call it this or that, aka shits and giggles. So I'm going to throw out 2 words. And
this is Piazza
yes.
Navona in Rome. That's the girl, and I found her just by absolute chance, literally by chance, 2 years ago. The same girl.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
That's the same girl.
Come on.
So they said, "Oh, my cousin's her," and I said, "It's impossible. The dates didn't match up." And but we met her, and she had the original book, the letter from the publisher.
Wait,
everything.
you met the cousin,
Yes.
and the cousin said, "That's
Yeah, exactly." And I said, "It's impossible."
how long did it take to bring in the girl?"
Yeah. So then we made an appointment. We met at the same park bench, Piazza Navona, and I've done an analysis of the bench. And we got the right bench because of the cracks, and it's exactly the same bench, same girl, and she's holding the photograph.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's genius.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, so before we go into audience questions, so please
That's
get
the cover of the Animals book, I think. No, it's the back cover, the back jacket. Yeah.
let's play a little game of this or that. So I'm going to throw at you a bunch of 2 questions. You have to pick one of the quick, rapid fire. Keep it going. 2 seconds to answer. Let's start. Film or digital?
Digital.
Planned shot or spontaneous moment?
Spontaneous moment.
Morning light or twilight magic?
Evening light.
Portraits or landscapes?
Portraits.
Iconic single image or full photo essay?
Oh, iconic single pictures, absolutely.
Monsoon rains or desert dust storms?
Monsoon.
Hidden alleyways or vast open landscapes?
Oh, alleyways every time. Dark and moody.
Okay. Pure instinct or years of experience?
Instinct.
It's
okay.
Only one. Capturing history or shaping perception?
Capturing history.
Capturing emotion or telling a story?
Oh, emotion.
Crowded city streets or remote villages?
Villages.
Finding beauty in chaos or simplicity and stillness?
Chaos. Every time.
One country for a year or 12 countries in a year?
Depends. If it's Italy, I would say
You
one
only
country.
get the no. It's not the way we're doing this.
I'll take the 12 countries.
All right. And with that said, let's go into your questions. Who's got a questions for Steve? Christina.
Hi.
Stand up, please.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming. You're an amazing photographer. I was just going to ask you, what is the most, dangerous or life-threatening situation that you feel like you've been in?
Yeah, it's funny. You would think it would be, Beirut during the Civil War, or Afghanistan, or Khmer Rouge, or, the Tamil Tigers in Sri Lanka. I was in a small plane in Slovenia, Lake Bled. Beautiful. Lake Bled is one of the most picturesque places in Europe. And I was on a small plane trying to do some aerial photography, and the guy crashed into the lake. I'm literally strapped in, 2 shoulder straps, helmet, and we hit the water, and the propeller burst apart, and then within a fraction of a second we flip upside down, and I still have the seatbelt, which I don't know how to take off. I never took the seatbelt off, and I was able to literally crawl out upside down I'm still wondering, like, did I die and this is another life? But I was able to crawl out from under the seatbelt and swim to the surface. Yeah, that was terrible.
But that wasn't the only time you narrowly escaped death. There's been a couple others,
times,
right?
I was almost drowned in India. I was in the water photographing a festival. I was up to my chest in water, and these people who I had permission to be with one group, the other group saw me and got upset, and they got my camera and they pulled it under the water. My neck is here by water, and they started like pounding on me, and I thought, it's actually 20 minutes past sunset. It's dark. Millions of people. They're going to kill me. Who would know?
Yeah.
This guy's going to end up being found. So fortunately, the guys who, by the way, I had my assistant, Indian guy. They also, all of my camera equipment, every lens, every camera body was trashed. Everything I had. And they got saved by this other group. But I called back the magazine and they said, "Can I dry it?" They said, "Just throw it away. It's all salt water. It's not gonna."
Kate?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for sharing your morning with us. And of all the Rose Faena events so far, this is the one that I've been so excited about. You spoke of your mentorship with Elliot Urwert and Carney Brisson. Are there working photographers now that you admire their work, and why?
Well, I think Joseph Kadelka, I think, is we talked about Joel Meyerowitz earlier. Joel, a wonderful photographer. He worked with large format. He photographed 9/11. Great book. He wrote Aftermath. He's done so many. He's reinvented himself. He was in black and white, color, large format, street photography. He's a very energetic, smart, articulate photographer. I think he's an important influence. I remember looking at his work when I was a student. And again, Joseph is an inspiration. I think there's a guy named Ian Barry that lives in the UK. He's an old friend and inspiration. But I think, just to name a couple.
Alonso?
Lozette Modell. I met her when I was a student, and she critiqued my work. She was a great photographer, and I lived in New York. Went to visit her, and I think she was an influence as well.
Please.
Thanks for coming. Would be curious to hear a little bit more about your experience in Afghanistan. I don't know how many times you've been and how you've seen it evolve and any insights you have. It's a fascinating land that most people don't have a whole lot of understanding of.
Well, when I first got there, the people who were fighting were farmers and shepherds. They were fighting with these old Enfield rifles, had axes and all this. I mean, it was like real primitive resistance. It eventually, got corrupted and became about power instead of. They were originally fighting for their way of life, their homeland, their family, their friends, everything. They're great people. They have a great sense of humor. When first time I went there, they still danced, and around a fire at night. I mean, that would never happen now. The men would dance, not the women. I still have a lot of Afghan friends.
When was the last time you were there?
I was there with my wife in 2016.
Okay.
I was there when Kabul was empty. There were no restaurants or hotels. I had to stay with a buddy, and now the traffic is just the worst I've ever seen it. And I haven't been back since the Taliban took over. Again, I feel it's a little bit unsafe.
Sure.
For a photographer, if I went there just to kind of as a tourist, but I would want to go there and work. And
you would or wouldn't?
I would. That's what I wouldn't go there unless I could photograph it. It's a risk,
sure.
With a camera on the street.
Absolutely. In the back here, Roman?
Hey, great interview, Pablo. Hey, Steve, thank you so much. This is fantastic. I wonder if, first of all, I feel like when I look at your photos, I feel like I'm in the scene. And if you were to step outside of yourself, what do you think it is about, whether it's your eye, whether it's your tools, that give you photography is open to anybody, right? What is it that gives you that edge that you're on Nat Geo, you're at Time, you're kind of at the tip of the spear of photography?
I think it has a lot to do with just dogged persistence and being willing to work really hard and trial and error. Photographing and coming back and looking at your work and seeing the mistakes, and think I got to do better, and doing that thousands of times. But also being willing to, the consistency, getting up every morning, be out on the street often before sunrise, and then work past sunset.
But you don't work, you work alone. There's no crew. It's just you, correct?
Yeah, again, if I'm in a foreign country, I'm with this assistant
Sure,
fixture.
but in terms of capturing the moment, and stuff, none of it is staged.
No.
It's all right. Really quickly, talk about when was your transition from a photojournalist to a visual storyteller?
Well, I did a lot of magazine work for 25 years or whatever, and I just decided that I want to work for me.
Yep.
I want to go out and just photograph exactly what I want to photograph, when, and all of that. And I don't want to have to shoot to a list or have this, be always thinking about, what does the magazine want? What do they need? The other thing about working for yourself is you can decide anytime during the day, I'm going to go have lunch, dinner, maybe I'm not going to work today, or maybe I don't, this location isn't working.
Sure.
I'm going to go someplace else. So, and to do things that you really believe in, and to photograph it in your own way,
Sure.
without having to worry about a spread or the cover or this or that.
Love it. We got 2 more questions.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for
Hold it.
being here, and it's an honor to meet you. Well, my question is, I have to read it. What has been the most profound lesson that you learned about humanity through your photography?
Can you? Did you
Yeah,
get
I
that?
think the question is about what have I learned about the world, I think the thing which my takeaway about traveling all these different countries is that, we're basically, fundamentally all the same in the sense that you get in a taxi in Cairo or Delhi or Beijing or, Buenos Aires or whatever, and we're all kind of the same. We all love our families. We all looking for, the weekend. We all trying to make our way in the world. And we all want respect, and we want to, have some joy in our life. So kind of fundamentally, I think that's kind of whether you're, Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Jewish, whatever. I mean, fundamentally, that's kind of what I kind of think, that we all really one family. Unfortunately, it's not working that well. But I see that common link, that common humanity. That's what I've...
And family for you came relatively late in terms of you had your daughter at 67.
Yeah,
Right.
believe it or not. I don't look that old, but
Sorry. I hope
but
I'm not.
yeah. No, I try to keep myself.
Okay. No, I think. Listen, I'm 53 and I don't have any kids, and you gave me hope. So, did you hear that, honey? All right, last question, and then we're going to put a bow on it.
I have 2 questions, actually. First of all, is there a shot that you missed that you still think about today? Like, oh my God, I should have taken a picture of that, and you didn't get?
God, you just reminded me about something that it happens all the time. In fact, recently when I was in Myanmar just a month or so ago, there was this really moment of this child crying in the middle of the road because of my daughter, who's older than that now. But I was kind of, it was so shocking that I was kind of I wanted to kind of help her, rather than photograph. And then the kind of moment passed. I'm not sure if it would have made a great picture, but I think that there's thousands of missed opportunities. I think what you have to do is just try and put that aside. I mean, in life, there's opportunities
sure.
and whatnot. And I think you just have to say, you know what, that's sort of past, and I'm just going to move forward. But yeah, there's, trying to get to the right angle and that fleeting moment. I have filing cabinets full of transparencies, pictures which will never see the light of day because of that missed moment. But it's okay. You just move on in a positive way and try not to dwell on those mistakes or missed opportunities.
Can I do the second one?
Oh,
sorry.
quickly.
I have a second question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, you've been photographing for a long time, at least 60 years.
No, not that long.
I know.
I did get a brownie when I was at camp, so it's almost right. Yeah.
So, back in the day, I guess, capturing those moments where you have like those two ladies, sunbathing, there's basically no one around. Was it easier to capture these incredible moments of like, let's say, less people, less stuff going on, or do you still find these moments today?
The two women sunbathing, that doesn't ring a bell, but it sounds interesting.
In Africa, I bet somewhere with an elephant.
Oh, it was the one where there was poolside, you're talking about the pool, and there was an elephant walking by. It was like on the beach. Might have been in Africa, or
India.
It's such a coincidence. Yesterday, the picture was at a gallery, and the guy that's on the lounge came in. The guy said that's me in the picture. And so the gallerist took a picture of him and sent it to me. I don't know if this is years and years ago.
Really?
It was so weird. He said he was a French tourist. He said that's me.
You have so many.
Sorry? No, it was in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka.
Very close to Galle. It was called the Trident.
This
Hotel.
one.
Yeah.
Right? With the elephant?
Yeah, the elephant's on its way home. It was...
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of wrap it up, Steve, with really quickly, if you could go back and give the young, aspiring photographer version of yourself some advice, what would you say? Go back X amount of years.
It's going to take a lot of work.
It's going to take a lot of work.
You may not want to embark on that journey because it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take
it's a grind.
Time, a lot of effort. You're going to have to be very consistent, and you're going to have to invest maybe years to get where you want to be.
Last one. One last question from me. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what do you want people to look back at you and your body of incredible work and to say and to think?
Well, I think that what he saw and recorded, it was a really positive, important look back at the history of the world at that point in time, and that it shows us what life was like in some of these places. It showed us, how the history of Afghanistan or India, what it was like to travel by train or the monsoon, because so much of the world has changed, and a lot of the things I photographed just don't exist anymore. The people, the way they dressed in Tibet 20 years ago, that's kind of gone. And to have that record to show what we were, what we look like, I think is really valuable.
So that segues into one of my favorite quotes of yours, which is, you said, I have this constant need or urge to put together a kind of photo album of our species before the world moves on and the shades get washed away.
Beautiful.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Steve McCurry.
Thank you. Happy birthday, hon.
Happy birthday, Andy.